So another crime which you should have an awareness is sexual harassment. So when we say sexual harassment is committed by a person who having authority, influence, or moral ascendancy over another in a work, training, or in education environment, and demands, requests, or otherwise requires any sexual favor from the other, regardless of whether such demand, request, or requirement for submission is accepted. So meaning, this sexual harassment are unwelcome sexual advances. So, halimbawa nito is request for sexual favors in connection with your work. So, sabihin niya, kung gusto mo promote gawin natin ito. That is considered as sexual harassment. Sa mga schools, yung mga professors, in order for you to pass a certain subject, you have to do this, you have to do that. It demands a certain favor, particularly sexual behavior. Sexual harassment does not always have to be specifically about sexual behavior. So it does not necessarily may physical contact. Though most of the time, sexual harassment done with physical contact. But it could also be done through, what do you call this one? Through verbally. For example, stating negative comments about women, about their sexuality, even not women, kahit sa kanino, lalaki man or babae. Negative comments about their sexuality is a form of sexual harassment. So what are the other things that could be included in a form of sexual harassment? Halimbawa nito, exposing oneself, yung pagmamasturbate, that is sexual harassment in front of everyone. That is sexual harassment. Unwanted, sexually explicit photos, pagpapakalat po ng mga photos, o pag-take ng pictures mo without your consent is sexual harassment. Verbal harassment of sexual nature. For example, sinabihin mo, ay maliit man yung ano ng jowa mo. That is a sexual harassment, a form of sexual harassment. So under sexual harassment, meron po tayong tinatawag na sexual assault and yung tinatawag nating rape. Sexual assault is something that has a physical contact with sexual contact with another person. That is what you call sexual assault. So, under that, meron tayong rape. So, in the old definition, sabi dito, rape is a mere touching of the labia by the male organ. So, pag sinabi natin, pag same sex, there is no rape committed. Kasi nga, based dun sa definition niya, labia and male organ. So, pag same sex, wala namang male organ. Pareho silang labia. So, wala daw sex na nagaganap. Or, when you use digital or anal. Kasi based on the definition, touching of labia. So, wala daw sex. So, nagkaroon yan siya ng mga conflict sa iba't ibang states, not only in the Philippines, but different. At the same time kasi, kumbaga pa, the definition itself was biased. Diba? Ngayon, even married women can complain rape as long as it is unwanted. According to the new definition, or under the penal code, the revised penal code, rape is considered rape if the person involved has a carnal knowledge of a woman under any of the following circumstances, meaning the action is done through force, threat, or intimidation, or he or she the offended party deprived of reason or unconscious. Yung offended party or yung victim has no intentions of having an affair or has no intentions of having sexual commitment doon sa tao or unconscious siya. So rape therefore refers to unlawful intercourse by a man against a woman who is not his wife by force or threat or against her will. So it is considered rape even though wala pong touching ng love, even though hindi po sa labia, even though sa inal siya pinadaan. But the action is against the victim's will or without the consent. That is considered rape or sexual assault. Arson. So what do we mean by arson or conflagration? So arson is a willingly or maliciously setting a fire to or charring a property, damaging a property. You intentionally set the fire, the building in fire. That is considered action, willingness. You have the intention, you have the malice, you have the knowledge that you are going to set this building in fire. That is considered as arson. Sinasadya mong sunugin. So if there is this case, nagkaroon ng sunog, and you are a midwife, what should be your first concern? Always remember the mnemonic RACE. First, remove the patient, alert the fire alarm, confine the fire, and extinguish the fire. Confine. Remove mo muna yung patient mo or else it will result to more damage. Diba? Then, alert the fire alarm so everyone is aware that there is fire in that building. Confine the fire. Kung pwede yung fire is dito lang na area. Kung kaya mo na siyang i-extinguish within this area, do that. Kaya nga meron tayong mga trainings, meron tayong drills na ginagawa so that everyone has a knowledge on how to set off fire in case there is any. Negligence. So ito yung kadalasan with it comes to work. So meron tayong, when we say negligence, it refers to the failure to observe for the protection of the interest of another person. So meron tayong criminal negligence, meron tayong professional negligence. When we say criminal negligence, it refers to the negligence of such character or occurring under such circumstances as to be punishable as a crime by statute. For example nito, na-aksidente ka, car accident. Car accident is negligence. 'Di ba? Meron kasing dalawa, merong criminal negligence, tort. Yung criminal, meron ding tort. Yung tort is a less serious form of violation. Although punishable siya, pero less serious siya. For example, if na-aksidente ka, and it shows na you are drunk, yung na-aksidente ka at nakakos ka ng damage to property is a tort. While your crime there is you are drunk. Kaya siya nagiging criminal negligence. Nakapatay ka, nakasagasa ka because you are drunk. That is considered criminal negligence. Professional negligence naman, meaning the breach of professional duty, or it refers to the negligence committed in the practice of profession. For example, nagkaroon ka ng eclamptic patient. So, pag eclamptic yung patient, there is a tendency for convulsion. And one of the safety protocols na dapat mong gawin is to raise the side rails to avoid the fall. Siyempre, nataranta ka kasi nag-convulsion na siya. Inuna mo magtawag ng doktor. Nahulog ngayon yung patient mo. Yung pagkahulog ng patient mo that causes her injury is a form of professional negligence. Kasi hindi mo dapat kinakalimutan, and in the first place, the first priority is the safety of your patient. So negligence is often referred to as that doing a thing which a reasonably prudent man would not have done, and not doing a thing which a reasonably prudent man would have done. It also refers to the commission or omission of an act. When we say omission, it refers to the failure to do what you should do. While commission naman is you did something that you shouldn't do. Nakuha po ba? Tatagalugin ko. Omission is hindi mo ginawa yung dapat sanang gawin mo, while commission is ginawa mo yung hindi mo dapat gagawin. Torts. Ito naman yung sinabi ko kanina. What is torts? Torts means legal wrong committed against a person or property independent of a contract which hinders the person who commit it liable for damage in a civil action. Torts are something that occurs when one person's negligence directly or causes property or personal damage to another individual. That is torts, yung negligence ng isang tao. So under this tort, an example of tort is an assault, battery, false imprisonment, or illegal detention. So sabi nga, torts, as assault is an imminent threat or harmful or offensive bodily contact. Imminent threat, attempted, yung attempt, that is considered as tort, and it is a violation against the civil rights of individual because it causes fear to an individual. Battery, unconsented touching of another person physically. False imprisonment or illegal detention, unjustifiable detention of a person without a legal warrant. So sabi kanina, this is under the doctrine of liberty of abode. So ano ba yung liberty of abode or liberty of travel? So everyone shall not be impaired. No one shall not be impaired except upon the lawful order of the court and when public safety or public health requires it. Sabi nga kanina sa example ko, kapag nagkaroon ka ng hospital bill at hindi ka po makabayad, the hospital does not have the warrant to detain you o hindi kayo palabasin. Wala po silang karapatan. Liberty of abode is only affected or not accepted if the person is a threat to the public. For example nito, yung COVID-19. If you are a positive of COVID-19 and needs to be quarantined, kahit na sabihin mo pa may karapatan kang pumunta sa ganitong lugar because you are a public threat, pwede ka po nilang i-detain. Invasion of right to privacy or breach of confidentiality. That is an example of tort. The right to privacy is the right to be left alone. The right to be freed from unwanted, unwarranted publicity and exposure to the public view, as well as the right to live one's life without having anyone's name, picture, private affairs made public against one's will. Wala po tayong right na manghimasok sa kaanumang buhay ng ibang tao. Once you've divulged or opened something that is not consented by the concerned individual, you are invading their right to privacy or their right to confidentiality. Next, defamation. So there are two types of defamation. We have the slander and the libel. So when we say defamation, it means a character assassination. Sinisira mo yung character ng isang tao. So slander is a type of defamation done orally. Orally by a person speaking unprivileged or false words by which his reputation is damaged. Chismis is a form of slander. Sinabi mo, ito si ganito, kabit ito siya, may sugar daddy ito siya, kaya niya nabibili ito lahat. Kaya ito siya sinusundo hatid kasi sugar daddy niya ito. That is a form of slander. You verbally assassinate someone. While libel naman is a form of defamation by written words. Written. Kagaya nung ginawa ni Enchong D. Cyber libel yun. Kasi yung comment niya regarding doon sa congresswoman na yung ginamit na pagpakasal is pera ng bayan, and that is a form of, that is malicious comment, and pwedeng ikasira at ikinasira yon ng tingin ng tao doon sa accused. So ulitin ko, slander is oral, libel is written. So another, malpractice, illegal malpractice. So kadalasan malpractice can fall to this misdemeanor or negligence. Depende po sa result ng nangyari. So this is a corrupt or careless professional behavior. So any professional misconduct which involves any conduct that exceeds the limits of one's professional standards means going beyond the context or scope of allowed nursing practice, resulting to injurious or non-injurious consequences. Like example nito is stepping beyond one's authority, like doing episiotomy. Stepping beyond one's authority. Bakit po? Episiotomy is done only by a physician, not by a midwife. So if kapag nag-episiotomy ka at yung episiotomy is nag-fall into 4th degree laceration, you are liable with that. Kasi in the first place, hindi ka po pwede mag-episiotomy. Episiotomy lang po. The same time, what else? Prescribing drugs. Magreseta ng mga gamot. Hindi po tayo allowed magreseta. Doktor lang po ang allowed na magreseta ng mga gamot. Not nurses, not midwives. Only doctors. Elements of malpractice. So what are the considerations para masabi that the professional has committed a malpractice? So meron tayong professional specific standard of care is required. Meron tayong scope and limitation na sinusunod. Requires obedience. Sinunod mo ba yung scope and standards mo? Exceeds the limit of standard of care. Yung ginawa mo ba is beyond your duty or responsibility. Therefore, your action, pag lahat ito nandoon sa circumstance or doon sa event, sa pangyayari, meaning you are guilty of malpractice. Next, negligence. So we are talking kanina pa negligence, meron tayong criminal and professional negligence. So when we talk about negligence, it refers to unintentional failure. Wala kang intention. Unintentional failure of an individual or person to perform an act or omission to do something that a reasonable prudent person would not do or not do. So failure to observe the protection of one's interests, the degree of care and vigilance of circumstances. Wala ka pong foresight. Failure to see what will happen. So negligence are the most common unintentional tort. Kadalasan, torts or crime of torts happened based on negligence of an individual. So there are elements to consider. Elements of negligence to consider lawsuit. So we have the BROD, the BROD, or elements of professional negligence. So for BROD, we have breach of duty was the cause of the injury. Breach of duty, hindi mo ginawa. Real or actual proof of injuries, plaintiff injury. Makikita mo yung kapabayaan. The evidence is present. May proof na makikita mo. Owed specific nursing duty to the standard of care. Balik tayo doon sa scope and limitation. And defendants breach the duties and scope of limitation. You did something that you shouldn't do. Can be an element of negligence. Ibig sabihin, you have a high tendency of being guilty. Next, for professional negligence naman, elements of professional negligence. First is existence of duty. Second, foreseeable crisis, breach of standard of care, presence of injury, and proximate cause. So for example of this professional negligence. So here is a scenario. A postpartum mother about prerenal care. So the mother developed puerperal infection after being discharged because of poor perineal hygiene. The question is the midwife liable for the infection? So, was there an existence of duty? Meron ba o wala? The answer is yes. Because it is the duty of the midwife to teach a postpartum patient about proper perineal care or how to take care of herself in order to hasten healing and prevent infection. So, foreseeable crisis. Kasi hindi niya tinuruan and knowing na walang alam yung nanay, there is a tendency that the patient may acquire infection or puerperal infection because he doesn't know how to take care of himself. Walang instruction na binigay sa kanya. There is a foreseeable crisis. Breach of standard of care. Is there a breach of standard of care? Or failure to perform a duty? Yes. Because the midwife did not teach the mother about proper perineal care, which causes the presence of injury, which is the infection. And lastly, for the elements of professional negligence is the proximate cause. When we say proximate cause, it refers to an event. It refers to an event or situation that is sufficiently or directly contributes to the injury. So that is proximate cause. So is there a proximate cause with this? Because of the lack of information, lack of health teaching of the mother, that constitutes directly to the infection that has been acquired by the mother. Therefore, the midwife who assists in the delivery is responsible for the infection of the mother. And she is considered negligent of that. And in that case, the midwife committed negligence by omission because of her failure to teach the mother about proper perineal hygiene. Diba? Omission, failure to do what a prudent person should do. So for your assignment to be passed before 6 p.m. So explain the following doctrines and give at least 3 examples in each doctrine. So first we have the res ipsa loquitur. Next is respondent superior and force majeure. What is these 3 doctrines? Explain it in your own understanding. If possible, explain it in Tagalog para mas alam ko na iintindihan nyo kung ano yung sinusulat ninyo, not just a copy-paste. So, when we talk about res ipsa loquitur, it literally means the thing speaks for itself. So this means that in certain instances or circumstances, the presence of facts surrounding the injury clearly indicates negligence on the part of the defendant. For example nito, kapag yung isang doktor is nag-undergo ng isang operation, normally ginagawa nila before sila mag-close ng incision, binibilang nila ang sponges, binibilang nila ang forceps, ilan yung forceps na nandyan, ilan yung mga laps, yung parang mga pads na nilalagay sa loob to prevent bleeding. Binibilang nila yan. And it should be complete. So if the scenario is hindi sila nagbilang kasi nga nagmamadali yung doktor kay may another operation, automatically gi-close niya. Later on, nalaman, nagkaroon ng infection. And upon x-ray, nakita doon, merong naiwang soap suds or merong naiwang lap sponge doon sa loob, merong naiwang forceps. And yes, meron pong nangyari na ganon. That thing speaks for itself that there is negligence on the part of the doctor. No other questions. Because the evidence is present. The facts are present on the event itself. That is what we mean by res ipsa loquitur. For respondent superior naman, so when we say respondent superior, it is when the midwife is only following the lawful order of the superior. Negligence, it means negligence of the servant or employee is the negligence of the master or the employer. This respondent superior is applicable only for employed midwives. Because meron silang mga supervisor, merong administrator. So, isa sila sa mga mananagot. But here in the Philippines, we don't follow this respondent superior. Although familiar siya sa atin, but what we follow is the doctrine of bonus pater. Ano po itong doctrine of bonus pater? It means the good father of the family. Ibig sabihin nito, a person is responsible or liable for the negligence of the person for whom he or she is responsible only if he fails to exercise diligence, carefulness, precautions of a good father of the family. Example po nito, teachers who are responsible for the damages caused by their students, so long as they remained in their custody. You are the responsibility of your teacher. So whatever negligence you have done doon sa inyong area of duty is the negligence of your teacher as well. What else? Employers shall be liable for the damages caused by their employees acting within their scope of their assigned task. For example, yung IV insertion. Pag nag-IV insertion ka tapos hindi mo siya na-hit, nagkapasa-pasa yung pasyente, tinutusok-tusukan mo siya, hindi mo siya na-hit. So, ang daming pasa. Nagreklamo ngayon yung watcher. Incompetent yung midwife nyo, incompetent yung staff nyo, walang alam. Pinapraktisan lang yung patient. The complaint should be faced by the supervisor or your head. Hindi po agad pinapaharap yung employee. Ibig sabihin nito, if you committed a negligent act and caused injury to your patient while performing your responsibility in a ward, her employer is also responsible for that. Lastly, force majeure, the doctrine of force majeure or fortuitous events. So dito sa force majeure, in this doctrine, negligent is not apparent. Wala pong negligent na nangyari. Accident. Mostly this is an accident. When we say fortuitous events, it means event that is beyond the control of human will. We don't have any control of that. For example, bagyo. Imminent abortion. Pumunta sa iyo, masakit ang tiyan, na prenatal sa iyo, pero the mother is having the imminent, inevitable abortion. Hindi na mapipigilan. Nag-bleed. You are not liable to that. Kasi it is beyond your control. Kaya nga siya inevitable abortion kasi hindi mo siya mapipigilan. What else? Kapag nagkaroon ng emergency cases, nagpaanak ka, nagkaroon ng bleeding. Pag nagpaanak ka at nagkaroon ng bleeding, and then you referred it immediately to the hospital. While on the way to the hospital, since merong profuse bleeding at nag-bleed to death, then you've done your part. You give oxytocin, you put the patient Trendelenburg, nagbigay ka ng oxygen, but then the patient died. That is a doctrine. Dito po papasok yung doctrine of force majeure. Because you've tried your best, wala pong negligence na naganap, you did what you have, you've done what you have to do, but still, the patient could no longer hold on to her life. And she died while on your way, while giving the intervention. As long as you did your duty, you've done your part, but the situation is uncontrollable, that is considered as force majeure. So this is it for today. This is my pre-recorded video. Hope you understood the topics that I've discussed for today. So activities will be sent later through, I'm thinking about Google Form for that. So again, thank you and have a wonderful afternoon.